Good afternoon here in Palm Springs. Valerie Milano, the senior editor of the Hollywood Times and also with Aspiring magazine. And I'm so glad to have my friend and my colleague and my guest on the show today. Thank you so much. I'm going to have you introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, Nicholas Snow here, known as the Promo Homo, creator, producer, host of PromoHomo.tv. But you may remember my historic public access show from the 1990s called Tinseltown Square, which I referred to as a Queen's version of Larry King. And Valerie, I've interviewed you so many times. This is the first time you're interviewing me. Should I be
Uh,
concerned?
I don't know. You can tell us after the interview. So, but Nicholas, you've just announced that your extensive collection of interviews, recordings, photographs, publications and other materials documenting the decades of LGBTQ plus journalism advocacy and community storytelling will eventually be donated to the LGBTQ plus history and archives of the desert.
Yes, I didn't realize the announcement would be such a big deal. They had an annual donor reception, and I knew I was saying a few words, but I didn't know I was going to be sort of hyped to be like the main guest that day and give a little speech. And then of course the press release they sent out is getting some really nice attention. Uh, And I have to tell you, Valerie, because you and I are friends, I have bittersweet feelings about the fact that I even have this archives because I was inspired to use my voice the way that I have in my life because of people that I was losing in the early 80s to HIV and AIDS. So I try not to let an acknowledgement go by where I don't talk about the source of my power and how I learned the value of every moment of life.
Yes. Nicholas, just what has come down with this press release we're talking about and how you were kind of surprised. What inspired this decision and what emotions are you feeling as you take this important step toward preserving your legacy for future generations?
Well, I've been out of the closet and in media literally for more than 40 years on the date we're recording this, which is June 25th, 2026. Pride Week in many major cities and Pride Month virtually everywhere. And a significant part of my early decades of activism really do not have a Coachella Valley connection. However, the last 25 years of my work has a very powerful Palm Springs connection. For example, I have broadcast from start to finish of multiple Palm Springs Pride parades. I've been at important election night victories and courageous resistance rallies, and I've covered milestones in the fight against HIV and AIDS, and I've interviewed just so many different people over time. So, uh, I decided that the LGBTQ plus history and archives of the desert would be great once I learned that they would definitely look at my entire life's work, and if they felt that there was something within the collection that they ultimately received that would be better placed somewhere else, they would have the freedom to do that. I had initially actually tried to, just to be completely honest, everything was going to go to the one archives at the USC libraries, but I found them challenging to work with because of the bureaucracy. And I ultimately learned over time that when people in the general public want to access their archives, it's really quite expensive to do so. And then I thought, well, so 7 years of my archives was happening in LA with my public access show. Maybe the UCLA Film and Television Archives might be interested. And they actually passed on the offer. As part of my arrangements, though, when I offered it to them, I stipulated that anything related to Palm Springs should go to the local organization here. And ultimately, when I realized that those other efforts were not fruitful, that the local organization was the best choice. And to be quite honest, when they first launched, I immediately contacted them, but at the time, they didn't have the bandwidth to even consider digital acquisitions.
Really? Well, this is our world now, so that's a little shocking to me. And I just want to again congratulate you on this remarkable announcement. And I know it's got to be a bit emotional because you've spent decades telling other people's stories through promohomo.tv. And how does it feel now to become part of this historical record?
Well, I recently lost a family member to alcoholism,
Mm,
and I'm 25 years sober. And uh, when I say recent, I mean in the current month of June. And I tried to find information about this family member online, and there's just zero footprint. Now, this isn't a criticism of him at all. No one is expected to have a footprint on the internet. But I have a massive footprint on the internet by virtue of my multimedia entertainment activism. And it had always been my intent along the way to create a legacy and to create a history. So much so that in my public access show in the early 90s, during a live broadcast, I would literally use the line, if you're seeing this at a later date, consider it a video time capsule. So decades ago, I was mindful that I was creating something important. I'm a bit nervous because I have 35-year-old videotapes in my home. They're climate controlled, but I need to figure out how to digitize them. Uh, and I plan on living decades more, goddess willing. Do you like how I used goddess instead of God? I have many views of a higher power. So, but I really admire the community of Palm Springs and Greater Palm Springs and everything that we have here and the way that we're a beacon of light. And it's been an honor to walk the path with people like you and others along the journey. So I ultimately have gratitude. I have gratitude that I was inspired to live a life of meaning of and purpose, and that I'm still doing so.
love it. Looking back over your career, are there particular, I know there's a lot, but any one, maybe or two particular interviews, events, or moments that you believe future generations will find especially valuable within your archive?
Gosh, I think there's many, but in my archives that's already digitized but not made public yet, I have an interview with Quentin Crisp, known as the Naked Civil Servant, a very iconic historical figure. Um, there's really just so many
Okay.
examples, and I frankly think when I'm not here and people look at my life's work, there'll be a bit of jaws dropping because of the vastness of it. I don't mean that in any sort of egomaniacal way, but people that know me recently from Promo Homo TV and my visibility in the current decades in Palm Springs, they're clueless about what I've done before. But yeah, uh, I've been doing this for a long time.
And around the block. I know a lot of these questions you're not going to be able to really answer very easily. As a journalist, broadcaster, and community advocate, you've witnessed tremendous changes in the LGBTQ plus visibility and acceptance. What is maybe one or some of the biggest transformations you've seen over the years?
Well, we still have huge challenges that face our community, but uh, an upside of social media is that it has given LGBTQ youth access to resources, role models, community that wouldn't have otherwise been available to them. I was on the board of the Alliance for Gay and Lesbian Artists in the Entertainment Industry around 1990. It didn't become GLAAD, but I believe it created the cultural context to create GLAAD, for GLAAD to come into the world. And, we have vast representation of who we are in all forms of media. And if you don't see the LGBTQ plus community represented almost everywhere you look online, it would be surprising. Now, granted, some of the characters on television who are in our community are being erased, and I can't imagine what it would be like to be a trans person in the world today with everything that the trans community is facing. I'm an ally. But yeah, there's more and more people have stepped forward and embraced themselves and have learned to live a little bit more authentically.
Many people know you as a tireless community storyteller. What originally inspired you to launch Promo Homo TV and dedicate so much of your career to the LGBTQ plus media advocacy?
Well, at the top of our interview, I explained that I was forever inspired and influenced by people living and dying of HIV/AIDS in the early 80s. But in the 90s, I was referred to as LA's primo promo homo on the go-go. And then, of course, my adventures took me around the world, and I ended up back in Palm Springs. I ended up getting back into podcasting. And then, when Facebook Live empowered live video, uh, I was actually at lunch with Brad Furr of, it wasn't K-Gay at the time, but I was with Brad Furr of Gay Desert Guide, and I was with Matt Skallerud of Pink Media. I've collaborated with Matt for decades. And it just occurred to me that everything I've ever done and everything I would want to do could live under the banner promohomo.tv. So I looked it up. It was available on all social media. I captured it. I ultimately trademarked it. It's a website, and it's a very well-known brand now, a decade later.
Yeah, yeah. The archives exist to ensure that local LGBTQ plus history is not lost. Why is preserving regional stories and community voices just as important as documenting national milestones?
Well, we stand on the shoulders of the people who came before us, and um, there's just so much that could be lost, especially when there are powers that be that want to erase us. And so, we will not be erased. We will not go away, and we will do everything that we can to tell the truth of our experience and from whence we came. Uh, and the stories always need to be told. Everyone needs to tell them.
You've always embraced new technology, and you've taught me some things, but you've always embraced new technology to tell stories and connect people. How do you think digital media has changed the way LGBTQ plus history is documented and preserved?
Well, everyone's a journalist. Everyone has a camera. And I don't want our interview to end without telling people, you and I met on a red carpet.
Yes.
We were introduced by Dana Adkins while I was at least recording, if not broadcasting live, uh, at the Steve Chase Humanitarian Awards one year. So that's how I came to know you. We met on a red carpet.
And we
Um,
continue to see each other on those carpets.
Yeah, when
I
I
love it.
was when I was working with Matt Skallerud and Fabrice Tessendo, the creators of GayWired.com that evolved into so many other things, I would say with them and on my own show that the internet is allowing us to jump homophobic Hollywood gridlock and go directly to a global audience that wants and needs entertainment product for and about their lives. Can you tell I'm used to speaking in sound bites?
Yes,
Yeah, well,
very good at it.
I I have broadcast almost everything with an iPhone. Or at least shot the HD video with an iPhone. Um, each individual has the ability to do today what, 20 years ago they would need a satellite dish, a production van, and a crew of multiple people.
Multiple. I want to talk about when researchers or community members open your collection years from now. What do you hope they learn, not just about Nicholas Snow, but about the LGBTQ plus community and the era you've helped document?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question because I've often been accused of exploiting my HIV status or exploiting LGBTQ activism for my own fame, fortune, and glory. And this isn't true, and all of us have haters at some level or another. And the question that I have asked myself, if it was in fact all about me, if you removed me personally from every single interview, every piece of content I produced, and you look at what was left without me, you have a vast amount. The overwhelming majority of what I've created is about other people and our movement over the past 40 years. And who knows what people will learn? I watch footage from 30 years ago, and I'm shocked. For example, I was talking about white privilege on live television in the 1990s with leadership from the Black Gay and Lesbian Leadership Forum. And I was acknowledging in the 1990s on television that white privilege was something that existed. Now, I like to consider myself as a fairly liberal, progressive person, but I always have so much more to learn to be an ally. But I was surprised that I was having that conversation then.
So to start closing this, and I never want to close, and we're going to be friends forever, and on the red carpets forever, I'm sure. We're tireless, right? After spending a lifetime helping others share their stories, what story do you most want future generations to remember about you and the work you've done?
Gosh, I've asked people many times in an interview, what do you want to be remembered for? I would have to say that I never stopped growing and I never stopped fighting. And I worked hard to create a world where people could simply find love and acceptance.
That is beautiful. What life's about, Nicholas Snow. Thank you so much. I will see you out and about very soon. And keep up the great work of storytelling and interviews. And I'm just so happy that we had this time together. We're the Hollywood Times today. The Hollywood Times official is our YouTube channel. And I can't wait to write this story for everyone to read.
Thank you, Valerie. Love you.
Okay, sweetie. Love you. Bye, baby.